Welcome and thanks for being here. I'm Dawn with K-Square Technologies. Welcome to our monthly webinar training series. Today's session is on Microsoft Outlook tips and shortcuts. So thanks for being here. And we encourage you to certainly be actively involved in our training on Outlook tips. And so please share your questions through the Zoom Q&A feature. So this is a place then where I can track that, and if at all possible, we'll answer the questions in the training or we'll follow up afterwards. If we simply want to share comments or have any type of interaction, that can take place in the chat feature. So we're simply separating these out so that we can provide the best possible learning experience for you. So thanks for being here, and we'll continue and want to just get kind of an idea of where you are with Microsoft Outlook. What is your experience? That is, what does that look like for you? And there isn't a right or wrong answer, but I want you just to think for a minute, if you were to look at a scale of 1 to 10, I'll be bringing up a poll here in just a moment, where 1 is a beginner, 10 is the ultimate expert. Where would you land? So let's look at then, are you maybe using Outlook, but just eager to learn and know that there's a lot more that you could add to be more productive in Outlook? You're feeling pretty confident that you have some solid Outlook skills, but having some additional tips or tricks certainly could save you time. Or maybe you're an aspiring superstar and really have it down. Perhaps there will be still some techniques that will be helpful for you in that. So let's go ahead and just get a quick idea from this group. I'm going to bring up a poll for you. And if you will just take a moment to give me an idea where you land. Every choice is a good answer for you. We'll be looking at a variety of topics. And so whether you are at more of the beginning level, more intermediate, or even advanced, it's likely there might be some tips or shortcuts that you will see that will help you to save time. Because Outlook is one of those programs where it's often of, hey, here's your email and just get started. You're just supposed to figure it out on your own. And how can we be more productive using this tool? So excellent. Thanks for jumping in on that. I'll just give you just another maybe 5 seconds here to answer the question. And we'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. I'll give you an idea here just so you can see where other people land as well, and to feel comfortable to it. Although we might have some fairly very skilled Outlook users, that we can all aspire to be a superstar with that. Wherever your experience, you're in the right place. My goal is to share a variety of Outlook tips and techniques that are designed to help save you time. So you can, wherever you are, to help you elevate that experience. So let's go ahead and take a look at where we're heading with this. One of the things to know as well is that all of our monthly webinar sessions are recorded, which gives you the opportunity to go back and to review specific areas. And so you may want to take a note of certainly those highlights, but know that you can also review that as well, because we want to be able to give you a wide range of things that will be helpful for you. And certainly being able to leverage keyboard shortcuts is one area that we'll look at briefly. Organizing and automating our work, key and essential, whether it's email, we're looking at calendar or task. How can we leverage our search tools? It used to be search in Outlook was something we stayed away from because it was so cumbersome and so slow. Well, that's no longer the case. And this can be a great way for us to really take advantage of and easily find the information that we're looking for. want to address certainly not only our calendar, but also working with meetings and tasks, because this becomes a way for Outlook to even be a more essential and helpful tool to us. And throughout, you'll see ways to customize Outlook. So that's our plan then for the time together. As I mentioned earlier, please share any questions or comments that you have. Put your questions in the Q&A, and just general conversation in the chat. So let's focus on those Outlook tips that will help you to be more productive. And we'll be primarily looking at a live demonstration within the Outlook interface. Certainly keyboard shortcuts, something that can be really handy for us in terms of navigation. So I'll show you then some things that can be helpful for you when we're working within Outlook. And let's go ahead and jump into and look at Outlook. Keyboard shortcuts, that's one of the things I mentioned. Now, right now I'm in my inbox. If I want to go to my calendar, I can easily do that by pressing Control-2. We'll try that again. There we go. Just a little slow for with that. Control-2. So that becomes a way for me to move to my calendar without having to click into any navigation. It makes it an easy way for me to move around. If I want to go to contacts, that's Control-3. Control-4 for my task. If you have notes, that would be Control-5. To go back to mail, that would be Control-1. So those are some quick ways for us to navigate. Now, if we're in our inbox and we want to create a new email, that can be as simple as pressing Control-N for new. And that means we once again don't have to go up into the ribbon. It just gives us a way for us to quickly create that. And that would be true as well in the other key areas of Outlook. So if you're in calendar, for instance, and you want to create a new appointment, that would also be Control-N for new. There are keyboard shortcuts that you can use regardless of where you're located. For instance, if I'm in my calendar and I want to go to calendar, if I'm in my calendar and I want to create a new email, that is Control-Shift+M. Think M for message. Control-Shift-A for appointment. Now some Control-Shift-K for task. So those shortcuts are available to you regardless of where you may be located and may be things that are helpful for you. Let's talk about automation. If there's only one tip I could share with you in Outlook, it would probably be to use rules. Give me an idea in chat here, and you can direct this for everyone, because just give me an idea. Put in a yes or no if you have worked with rules before. So yes or no, have you worked with rules? And as we're looking for that interaction, and if you have, feel free to share how you've worked with it. Here's the idea with rules. You can turn Outlook into a personal assistant. And what that means is, as your email comes in, you can tell rules what to do with it. And some things that rules can do with messages is we can move messages to a folder. We could assign it a category, such as vendor, client, those kinds of things. We could delete messages, or we could even forward messages to the contact group. So I'm seeing in chat that we probably pretty evenly split with that. Let's look at a quick example of how you can create rules. And then of course, we'll move into a number of other tips and techniques. Here's the idea. Now, if we had a message that had a specific appearance, that is, it represented what we wanted to, let's say, move to a folder, we could highlight that and we could right click And then here is rules. So this is an option for us to create a rule. Another option is in the home tab of the ribbon. Here I have rules. And from here, I'll go ahead and create a rule. What I'd like to do is to take any message that's coming from a specific sender. In this case, I have a number of technology newsletters, and I'd like to have all the technology newsletters from a company called Tech Republic and have those move to my tech newsletters folder. And I wanted that to happen automatically. So I don't even want them to show up in my inbox. I just want them to move there, and then I can read them as I have time. So that in this case, I had a message here from Alan that was selected. Now, if I wanted everything from Alan to be handled in a specific way, then I might be able to just create a rule right up front here. But in this case, instead, I have some more detail, or I don't really have an example that will help me build that. So I'll go to advanced options instead. And what I'm looking for here, you can see that there's lots of different conditions. That's something to explore, whether or not you've created rules. Dig into this rules wizard to see what you could look for. So for instance, if you have certain communications, maybe you have 3 contacts within a key client or customer, then rather than looking for a specific email address, it might be that you have the domain like company.com. For this one, I want to have specific words in the message header. And those words, I'll click on this, these will be Tech Republic. Now spelling would count on this. So Tech Republic would be what I'm looking for there. Now, in this case, I could add that, and I could add other things as well. That is, I could have a rule that manages multiple tech newsletters, for instance. For this one, I'll simply OK, and then we would continue. But definitely explore this, especially if it's something you haven't worked with for a while or it's brand new for you. And what do I want to do with it? I actually just want this to move it to a specific folder. But notice there are options like delete, forward it. Perhaps there's a communication that you get that you want to forward to a particular contact group within your organization. And for this, my specified newsletter will be, my specified folder will be tech newsletters. So I simply will select that. So that's all I need for this rule, but there's more that we could build into it. I'll choose next, and you could have exceptions. That is everything from this particular domain except for this particular person, for instance. And in this case, I'm going to take this one and run the rule. Apparently I already had one for that, but that's okay. We'll run the rule on this. Now I don't have to, but the idea is we want this to be automated. So I will finish. And that was pretty quick. Let's see what happened here. So in my tech newsletters, I have tech newsletters and let's say Tech Republic News, etc. But this one was top story of the day. So it didn't matter what the sender was for that, but in terms of the header in there, but in the header was Tech Republic. So that was the key in terms of what it was looking for. That also means in the future, as other messages come in, that would be something that would automatically process. And then at any time, we can go back to rules here and manage rules and alerts. And so if I realize, oh, I already had one for that, then I might select this one and I'll delete it. But you could also change the order in terms of how they're processed. You could go in and you can look at the specifics about them. Maybe there's something you need to modify in terms of what you've set up. And at any time you could run those rules again. So rules will automatically then run as messages come into your inbox. And that isn't something that you have to trigger in any way. It's good sometimes just to check to make sure that they're working and that things are navigating to where you want. But that's the idea of leveraging rules. Another way for us to be able to handle things would be something called quick steps. So rules are something that's automated. You might find that there are times when you simply don't want to set up all the particular conditions, but you'd like to have a quick, easy way to be able to move a message or otherwise work with it. So some of the same things that were available in the rules. So with a quick step, this is where you're creating a small automated routine, kind of like a mini macro that we could put into Outlook. So anytime you have something that you'd like to work with it, you can work with that quick step. We'll find them in home here. And what I'd like to do is take that idea of moving something to my tech newsletters, but I might not want to take every possible instance for that. In quick steps, and you'll see this in this group, there are some presets, but most of the time you'll probably want to just create a brand new one. And in this case, I'll call it Tech Newsletters. I want it to do two things: move that file or move that email, that communication to the folder, and I'll mark it as unread. Lots of other things we could do as well. So my action, if you haven't worked with quick steps before, explore the flexibility that you have here. So quick steps gives you more control over when something happens rather than having it be automatic. And I'll move it to a folder and specifically to my tech newsletters. I'll add one more action, and that action will be simply that I can mark it as read. There could be other things as well. So explore those, all of these different actions that are available to you simply by assigning them or creating a quick step. If this was something that I used a lot, then notice there's also an option to create a shortcut. I'll assign this to Control-Shift-1, it's optional. And you can give that a quick description. Once I have that, that means that it will show up here in my quick steps. You can manage those quick steps and change the order of those, for instance. And that's available once again through that drop down and simply manage. So once you have those, you can rearrange them, you can delete them, you can go in and edit the properties, whether it's to add a shortcut key or other actions to it. And then as you move through and see, for instance, different things come along, here I have another newsletter, and I want to move that to my tech newsletters. My option then is I could actually just use this quick step, or you could see Control-Shift-1 is my keyboard shortcut, either one. And that will now move to my tech newsletters. And in fact, I could check to see that it's there. And there it went. But that becomes then something that might be easier than dragging it to a folder. It all just depends upon what makes sense for you. And that's the idea with Outlook, is customizing it, making it more useful for you. When we talk about automating and being able to move things around, one of the other pieces that can be very helpful is to work with favorite folders. And favorite folders is something that you'll see that I have some of this already set up above my folder structure and email. This is optional, but you can find it to be really handy. That means, especially if you have a pretty extensive folder structure, that you have the opportunity then to be able to put the folders you use most often up here in favorites. Here's how that works. Here I have my tech newsletters, and because it's not too long a distance here, I could take those and just drag it up here into favorites. And we can drop it into any particular location. It is not, it is just creating a shortcut. It's not moving it. So that's a good thing to know. Because if at any point that I want to change this, I could right click on this and remove it from favorites. It's not, it is not repositioning or moving these. That's what I'm going to do with this training folder. Maybe dragging, you prefer not to do the dragging, or that's not, you don't want it to go to the wrong place. So I'll come into right click here on training and add it to favorites. But these can be rearranged. So the whole idea here is that they can come in and represent and be a quick way for us to be able to drop things in to specific folders. So these folders, I could have my important projects, for instance, and work with those as well. And let's say, for instance, here I have an update on this month's project, and this is from Alex, and I want to take that message and move it to my important projects. I've reviewed it, but I want to make sure that that's there. And you can have subfolders as well in the favorites. And in this case, then I'll simply drag it there. That could have been a quick step as well. But now I've moved it to that folder as something that's available to me to be able to work with a reference. And then at any time a particular folder is no longer needed, we could remove that. Now, just a quick mention here too, if you have a lot of folders, in this case, I don't have too many yet, but these folders can be, don't have to be in alphabetical order. They can also be reordered in any sequence that makes sense. Whether or not I have favorites, I could take training and move that to the top. And this is in my, whoops, but see what happens with dragging? I'm going to say no. So I have to be a little careful here. I'm going to drag. I'm going to make sure I'm far enough over to the left. That horizontal line can help me see that. So fortunately, I got prompted on that. And this is sometimes how we can seemingly lose folders. So our folders do not have to be in alphabetical order. We can rearrange these so that they make sense for us. At any time, however, we can go back to our inbox, right click, and resort them in alphabetical order if you got a little carried away with that sequence. So those are some tips for folders. I want to just check in over some people have just joined us. Check in. What questions do you have about Outlook that you're hoping we will be able to look at, or you'd like some follow up on? How can we be of help to you? Maybe what are the things that are taking up a lot of time for you? And we may or may not be able to address all of those, but please do share those in chat. Do let us know. And if you have a specific question, please use the Q&A and we'll address that as much as we can or as much as possible there. So please let me know how we can be of help to you. And let's go back, let's look at, and thanks for that, appreciate the comments. You're welcome to send these to me privately for sure. Let's look at quick parts. Quick parts, think about the things that you do, those messages you have, where there's repetitive content, the content that you're using over and over again. How are you handling those? Are you opening up an old message and then copying it from that? Some people use a Word document. Others have documents they put into draft that they draw from. You might, with quick parts, you don't need any of those. Quick parts is a way for you to take content that you use frequently or just on a regular, repeatedly, and for you to be able to store it and bring it back into your messages. So here's the idea of how this works. First of all, we open up a message that maybe somebody else has, or likely it's something in our sent that we have sent out before. We open up that message, and although we're not planning to actually send it, I'm simply going to reply to it, even if it's my own message. I'm going to reply to it so I have access to the content. And what I want to do is I want to take this section here on how to get computer support, because that would be something helpful for me to have in my quick part so that I could put those, or perhaps drop that into an email, whatever that content might be. So for those of you that are dealing with, it may be a customer service issue, you have a response to members that you are working with, or clients, or it might be just partners, anything that you have that might be repetitive. Next, I'll highlight this. So I'm only going to highlight then what I'd like to store, what I'd like to save. And we'll go to Insert. And towards the right-hand side here is Quick Parts. From here, I'll save the selection to the Quick Part Gallery. And in this case, I'll just call this Computer Support, whatever is helpful or descriptive. I'll put this into my Quick Parts Gallery. There's a lot of other options, but for this one, I simply will keep this pretty basic. Now, you could create a new category. So for those of you that might be dealing with legal contracts, customers, marketing, you could create a separate category for this. And I'll continue for this. We'll simply choose that we have different options for how we're going to insert this. All I'm going to do then is simply say, okay, so now I've actually stored this. And if I went back to my quick parts right here, I'd actually see that content there. There isn't a limit in terms of how many you create. To see how that works, I'll create a brand new message. Control N for new, saw that as a shortcut. I'm now in my body of my message, insert, quick parts. I can drop this in my message, and we can use other quick parts as well. This is editable text, which means that you can have some generic fill in the blank type things, but think about all those things that are repetitive and how you can now store them in quick parts to make this much easier for you. So what would be helpful for you? Next, we're going to, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm moving pretty quickly through this. This is one of the reasons why we make the recording available to you. Because I want you to, hopefully you will, as we wrap up, you will take away multiple tips and techniques that you can start to use right away. Even one might be, a big time saver for you, certainly. Do want to just mention that, and one of the ways we can definitely take advantage of and really get a lot of power in Outlook, whether we're an email or a calendar or task, is through search. And search is probably something you're using every day, but if I'm looking for everything related to training, I could type that in, and now I have those responses. When you put in a search request, you now then will see a search ribbon. And I'd like to get more specific. I want only those documents that reference training that have attachments. So when I say has attachments, now that narrows it down a lot. And that could be very helpful if I'm looking for something from a particular client or person, anything along those lines. So think about how that could be useful for you. And of course, we can get much more specific in terms of what we're looking. Great, I'll answer your question in just a moment here. What we're looking for in terms of even time-based and others. How to store a good number of email addresses for regular distribution. They go to a BCC tab. I have to copy and paste them from several sources every time. I guess to answer that question would depend upon whether that source changes. And it may be easier for you then to bring them into a initial, so if they're the same, then certainly they could be maintained in something like an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can just copy that all in. The other would be that you might want, it may be helpful just to put them into one kind of repository if they do vary for that. And then I'd probably ask too about the regular email distribution is you can even utilize then particular lists like that and create a mail merge in Microsoft Word, for instance, that would go just to that list. Now, and then would be able to send those out. Those would be individual messages, so they wouldn't go to the BCC. It would go to them individually. So unless it's something that you're always doing, that is, if it's the same list over and over again, you could create a contact group for them, but you're likely that will be cumbersome with that many that you have, especially if it varies. So I'm not sure if that's giving you any more options with it, but you may find it's easy if you can kind of consolidate them together in one source and then be able to copy from that. So if anyone else has other ideas that have worked well for them, it depends upon what your use of that is. There certainly are, newsletter services as well for that. But even the mail merge in Word might be a way as well for you to be able to handle where that list is variable from time to time. And hopefully that answers that question. Please do share and let me know as other things come up for you. One of the things that is, I want, as well as we're working, is maybe I want to have messages that stand out for me. And in this case, then, I don't want them to go to a particular folder, but maybe it's my boss or a key customer. How could we have those stand out? And one of those ways is for something called conditional formatting. So that's what we'll look at next. I'll also show you a little bit with some relatively new tools in Outlook that are available for reading and dictation. And then we'll start looking at how we can schedule and leverage some of the apps and things that are available as well in Outlook. So conditional formatting. I have this key contact partner, Hayden, who I'd like to have his messages stand out, but it could also be a customer, my boss, those types of things. And to work with conditional formatting, I'll go to the View tab. So the View is where you can really leverage a lot of power from Outlook in terms of how you customize your information. And under View are View settings. And in the View settings, I'll choose conditional formatting. So this means that I'm putting in formatting based upon certain conditions. And this is actually where you will see why unread messages are bold and blue. If you want those to look differently, you can actually modify that condition. In this case, though, I want to add a new one. And I'll simply call it by his name. I'd like those to stand out. And I'll put in a color here. Maybe I want those to be, I'll make it red just so that you can see that, and I'll make it bigger. I can make it even bigger and maybe bold, just so that you can see those easily. And okay, so now I've got the appearance, but what's the condition? Well, the condition can be very specific. And if this is something of interest to you, definitely explore some of those other choices. But all I want to do for this one is just put in his email address. So there, we could definitely explore more with that. So anytime a message comes in from that email address, it will be formatted in this way. I'll okay. And you'll notice that as soon as I say okay, it is applied. And this would also apply to other new messages as they come in. This helps me to have those pop or stand out on my screen. That is conditional formatting. A couple other things that are available for us that are some helpful tools. Here I'll open up this message from Hayden, very, very simple here. And there's something called read aloud. Read aloud. And I'm going to change one thing here so that you can hopefully hear it. And that is, with read aloud, if you find it helpful, under the message tab, you can click on it right here, and the message will be read to you. And it's supposed to be read to you, but it's not coming up even though I did change that. And just for the sake of time, I won't keep changing options for that, but it is something that you might find helpful. And even under your settings, you can change the reading speed, and you can change even what voice is used for that. So explore that feature to see if that might be handy for you in terms of how that works. Another option, let's say I'm creating a new message here again. I could also use a feature called Dictate. And so this is something that is only available to Microsoft 365 subscribers. But if that's, that might be something that you can find handy as a way to dictate your messages if you simply would find that a lot easier than typing. How this works, I will enable it. And then you'll look for the little light to come up. Notice how that came up. The dictation feature is a handy way to create and respond to messages, period, smiley face. So I'll turn that off. As you can see, I could be just like with text messages, you can be explicit with your punctuation, and you can tell it will pick up from whatever microphone you might be using or connected to as a way to dictate. So try that out as well as another quick and easy tool that you're working with as you work with email. Now let's look at the issues and challenges that we have with scheduling. Oops, that wasn't the one I want. Here we go. How many times have you been caught up in basically an email thread where you're going back and forth on meeting times? Well, I could do Thursday at 2 o'clock. Oh, that doesn't work for me. How about 4 o'clock? No. Instead, we have some options in Outlook that could be a big time saver for you. The first is something that's built in, and I could reply, and if it's just, I'll reply to all here, but as I reply, if I want to just simply say, here's my calendar, here's my availability, we can find that under Insert, and here we have Calendar. Now, don't be concerned that it's going to get all of the details that you have. All you're simply doing with the calendar is you can specify what you want to share. Maybe I want to share the next 7 days and my availability only. So notice that we're not having to put out our personal and business calendar. I also want to show time only with my working hours only. That is something you can set up in your options. So with this, then, I'm simply able to maybe head off so much back and forth with this. And I'll say, okay, and this would actually create a calendar where they can see exactly what my availability might be and working with that. And it even has these are even clickable hyperlinks with them. But the idea is that you might be able to make this a much easier communication by inserting the calendar. Now, another option for this is something that can be easily set up, and that is something called Find Time. So I'll minimize this for just a minute. I'm going to reply to this message using it. Find Time. Find Time is an add-in that is absolutely free. It's a Microsoft add-in, so you can feel a little bit more confident about it. I already have it installed, but from my home tab, I can go to Get Add-ins, and I'm looking for Find Time. Now I can type it in the search. You could also go to findtime.microsoft.com for that. But what would happen is that it is something that you can add into Outlook. So it shows up here, reply with meeting poll. I'm going to go to that message that I had. And my response here on this. And I could say new meeting poll. What happens, and I'll go through this pretty quickly, but you are actually going to, if you've done it, for instance, if you worked with something called like a doodle poll, you're going to be able to set up how long, and you're actually polling those people and showing them, say, well, here's my availability. I'm available in this time and on this other time. And you could actually select for multiple dates, multiple times. But what you will actually be sending them is a poll. So especially if you have multiple people involved in the conversation. So this is something you can explore in more detail, and notice this will be setting it up as a Teams meeting. You could set it up, you can make other choices, but this is something I will add to the email. And then what will happen is that they can then go into the poll, choose what dates work well for them, and they can even specify that they have certain preferences. Once the poll is completed, or when you decide that you're going to close the poll, the meeting is scheduled. In the meantime, these times are tentatively blocked off in your calendar so that you also don't end up with those conflicts. So Find Time can be really handy add-in in working with that. Now, once you have, maybe you've already have determined when you're going to set a meeting, just a reminder for you. If we look at our calendar, for instance, and we can also do this often from our email, look for these add-in tools. If I want to set up a meeting, and so many of our meetings are virtual, and by the way, notice that these dates were held temporarily until we get that poll. Just a reminder that you can create a new Teams meeting directly from Outlook. Remember, we have that integration with Teams. And if you work with Zoom, there is a downloadable Outlook plugin that you can also use. And the nice thing about doing it from here is you're working with your own schedule, and it is a way for people to accept the meeting, which is something that doesn't happen if you just simply send it out directly from Zoom. So these are optional add-ins, plugins, but they might definitely help you to leverage your time and your ability to be able to easily schedule. Want to pause and just check in. How are we doing? What questions do you have about Outlook? We're going to spend a little bit of time with calendar and task before we wrap up for today. What have you seen so far that you can start to use right away? Please share that in chat. What have you seen that is new for you, or maybe you were reminded of a tip or technique? What can you start working with in Outlook? Please share in chat. Hopefully you've seen at least one or two things. What would that be? Someone sent to me. Okay. Excellent. All right. I've got one on find time. Glad that was helpful. Liked the review on rules. Definitely hop those in. Let me know. But let's go ahead then. We'll continue here and looking at some things for calendar. Find time, quick parts. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Quick parts. That's really handy. Think of all those repetitive emails. How much time could you save with quick parts, especially when you're copying and pasting with that? Excellent. Glad those are helpful for you. Please share anything else that you see that's also useful for you. Excellent. We had some keyboard shortcuts in email. Let's look at some that are in calendar. And these have to do with just changing our views. Certainly these are available in the home tab as well as in the view tab as well. But if I want to see just my current day, that would be Control-1. If I want to see my, Control-Alt-1, that would be helpful because Control-1 takes me back to my inbox. And so let's get back to the calendar. Whoops. It's trying to be so helpful for me. There we go. Okay. So I'm in my calendar. Control-Alt-1 is my day view. We're getting some little slow down technically, so I will go ahead and switch these manually then. But Control-Alt-2 gives me my work week, my week. So I have that flexibility. You can see as I hover over that these keyboard shortcuts are here. One of the things that can be really helpful for us as well, though, is that if we're in view, go to the view, and that is what will be useful for you to see. One of the things I like, if you leverage task at all, is to go and add the daily task list. And here I want to see what task I have, and those actually show up here near the bottom of my calendar. So I can kind of integrate those and show those in some helpful ways. Another way for that to be useful for us is from our email, is that under view, then on the right-hand side, right now I'm seeing my reading pane. Now I could keep that on the screen, but I'll turn it off for right now and instead go to the to-do bar. So I want the calendar and I want the task to show up. Now this is sizable pane that shows up on the right-hand side, and I will size this. So what this can tell me then is what I have coming up. And in working with that, so we just have some resources and I can show all my upcoming tasks. A lot of people like this to be just kind of an interface or a portal to be able to show what you've got in terms of appointments, what tasks should you be addressing. All of these become really easy for us as well. One of the other things too is when we talk about calendar and task is often we have email that really shouldn't stay in our inbox. It really needs to be moved to a folder, or it should go someplace else so that you can actually get things done with it. So that is that we can convert email to appointments or tasks. Here's the idea of how these types of things can work. Maybe I would like to take this, here I have these Outlook training shortcuts, and I would like to simply move those to my task as something to review. Well, one way I can make that into a task is to hover over this and look for this flag. You could right click on that We could also right click as well anywhere on this and look at follow up. So I'd like to have that be a task. I'm going to look at it this week perhaps, but I'll add a reminder. I want to be able to save that for Friday when I get a little bit of downtime. And I want to have that be something that I can look at. Now, I don't have to have a reminder for it. It just depends upon how we handle our task. But I've now set that up as a reminder, as a task. And if I have done that, then consider, do I take that message and maybe move it to pending or processed or a to-do folder? In this case, I'll move it to my to-do folder so that it simply is not sitting there in my inbox. Another way though that I might, maybe I want to review this content here. I could also just take this and drag it down into my task. So I'm dragging it down to the bottom. Just having some technical, there we go. Dragging it down to the icon for task. When it pops up, what'll happen is it just becomes then a way to create a task from an email. And I'll do that tomorrow. And we'll go ahead and save and close. But that's something you can drag it down into that. Now, once again, what do you want to do with it? The same thing takes place with your appointments. So here I have this updated chocolate sales. Well, I'd like to set that up for my meeting on next Tuesday. This time I'm going to right mouse drag down into my calendar in the bottom of the navigation. When I let go of my mouse, because it was a right mouse drag, what I can do here is I could copy the appointment with the attachment, which means the email is available with all of the files that are part of it. I could move it if I no longer want to have this. So that is, if you're not comfortable taking it completely out of your email, then copy it and then perhaps move that message to a processed or something along those lines. But now I'm actually taking it out of my inbox or taking it to a place that makes more sense. And this is going to be something that I actually want to maybe set up as in a meeting. So I could invite attendees to change it from an appointment to a meeting. But that's the idea of maybe, there we go. We have some little, I'm typing too fast apparently. But then this becomes a way for us to leverage that is, where should those messages actually reside? Where should they be working and stored? So you can drag them into your task, drag them into your appointments, whatever makes the most sense for you in terms of working with it. Another thing that can be helpful for you in that navigation, when I worked with in the navigation, these were with the icons. If you prefer, you can go to the ... This means more. And what that will let you do is change this if it's more helpful for you by going into navigation options. And right now I'm seeing the compact navigation. That means I'm seeing the icons. Instead, I'm going to turn that off so that I see the words. And you might find that more helpful. So it says mail, people, task, calendar. And then that might be then a more easier way for you not only to move those messages, but to also see what's available as well for that. And let's take a little bit more time with our task. So we can view them from our calendar, we can view them from our inbox, but we can also manage them here as well. You'll notice that, for instance, when I took those other ones from my inbox, they ended up going into my to-do list, which is kind of a combination between things that you might create from other sources and tasks that you might create more individually. Then it's just, how do you want to view this information? So you can see either one of these, but in this case, then I want to see all the different possibilities. So we can move them. We could also create them from scratch. So that would be, for instance, I'm in my task, I could just Control N for new. Keyboard is, there we go. And maybe I want to just get some planning in over the holidays, and I'll set that up as a reminder for me. So those are the kinds of things to also consider. That, some people love the task feature in Outlook, others just don't ever work with it, and you might be somewhere in the middle with that. But what would be helpful for you, that is, if we have things that are in our inbox and we really want them to be able to, we want to have those become a priority or schedule them, where's the best place for them to be stored? What would be helpful for you? Those are some of the options that we have, some of the tips and techniques that are available to us when we're working with Outlook. As we wrap up, please share in chat, what are some of the things you have that you can start to put to work right away with Outlook? What have you seen? We saw find time, quick parts, maybe I see making a task out of an email. That's what somebody is mentioning here as well. Please share those in chat. What are your takeaways? What has been helpful for you? What have you learned, or maybe going from that, on that scale of 1 to 10, what has helped you to elevate or look at some things that might save you some time? Please share those in chat. Let me know. Know that you'll have a recording of this session. The other thing as well that we want to do is to just really, following this session, we'll have a survey for you so that we can find out what you'd like to see coming up. That is, as we start to plan for our future classes. We do have some classes coming up for us in next year. Perhaps you attended our session on getting started with Microsoft Teams. And so this is kind of a part 2 for us. How we can leverage the power of Teams, digging into it more so in terms of understanding some of the meeting features, working with files, working with applications. And so what are some of the additional tools so we can really take advantage of that? We'll also look at Microsoft OneNote. This is a really valuable tool that we have available to us that is often not used, and it could be a great way for you to be able to capture information. You do not have to download the recording. The link to that will be sent to you as a follow-up from this session. So thanks for asking that question. And then we'll we're going to be adding other Microsoft Office applications, certainly, and that includes another class on Microsoft Excel, specifically leveraging the power of pivot tables. So that is coming up as well. You've likely already seen some emails on those to register, but let us know. And I hope to see you join us for those learning opportunities, certainly. And hope that you will let us know exactly how we can be of greatest help to you. That has been our look at Microsoft Office tips and shortcuts. Let us know, how can we help you to be more productive? Please reach out to us for IT services and consulting to help you support your Microsoft technologies. Thanks for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you again.